Alright friends, welcome to the video. Today in this video I will show how we can change the style of HTML elements on the basis of mouse movement. As an example, I have created this simple project in which if I hover in this center div container like so, we will get the text shadow on this h1 title, and this text shadow will adjust its position on the basis of this mouse movement, okay, like so. So basically it means if I move the cursor on the top, the shadow will be on the bottom. If the cursor is on the bottom, the shadow will be on the top. Similarly, if I move the cursor on the left, the shadow will be on the right side, and if I move it to the right side, the cursor, then the shadow will be on the left side. So you get the idea. Now let's see how we can create this effect. In this project, I'll be using React with Typescript and some Tailwind CSS for styling. However, if you are not familiar with these frameworks, you can just use regular HTML, CSS and JavaScript to get this effect by just applying the concept I show in this video. Now let's start with the basic setup of our project. So let me just remove that and add some more elements over here. So I need another div and maybe one h1 tag. Let me give the name here. Let me just paste it over here, and then I need to style this one. Let me make it grid and then place item center. Okay, center is over here, and make it height of the full screen. Okay, I think that's all we need for that div, and let me give some style to this one also. Same thing here also, grid, place item center, so that the h1 should be on the center of it. And we're gonna add text of 8 XL, font bold, and then text of color red 700. I think that looks good, and then background of gray maybe 300, and let me add a border, and border should be the color of, let's say, gray 400. Okay, and we need to provide the height and width of this div. So let's say for now the width is around 600 px. Okay, and the height is of let's say 300 px. Okay, I think that will be enough. And if I save it and go to this Chrome browser, and that is what we have so far. Now we will see how we can add the text shadow on this h1 elements. Now let's go to VS Code, index.css, and target this h1 for now, and then we can say text shadow, and first value for this text shadow is horizontal shadow, second value vertical shadow, and how much blur it can be on the third value, and then we have to provide a color that will be black for now. And if I save it, go to the Chrome, we can see the text shadow over here. Now one thing I want to do is inspect this element, and here you can see the value we give it, the text shadow value, right? So if I change this first value, like right now it's 20 px, and if I change it, you can see the shadow is moving. So you can see now it's on the left side, it is moving on the x-axis. Now we can change this also, and you can see the shadow will be on the top now because we changed this y-axis shadow position, right? Something like that. Okay, so now we know that if we change these two value of the text shadow, we can change the position of the shadow. Okay, and one thing you have to remember that we want in this project this horizontal shadow and vertical shadow to be range between negative 20, put negative 20px to 20px. Okay, so we want to set in such a way that when we move the mouse, the value of this x and y shadow position will be from negative 20px to positive 20px. Now here in this app tsx, in this div, I want to add an event, let's say on mouse move. Okay, so that when we move the mouse inside this div, we get this event, and then this event will run the function. Let's name this function shado animation. Okay, all right, now we need to create this animation. We can do that over here. Okay, now say const shadow animation. Let me say this is arrow function, and here is how we can create a function. Now we can get the event from this function, and we have to provide the type for this event because I am using a Typescript. So to know the type of that event, I can simply say this, and I can check what type we are getting from here. So it says the type of this event will be here. Let me just copy it, and I can remove it now, and then I can just provide that type over here. Okay, now once we have this event, what we can do is I can say const, and I can get the, let's say, client x x equals to event dot client x. So I'm getting client x and client y from that event. Okay, client y. Okay, so to see that, let me just say console.log and put that client x and client y. Let's save it and let's check on our browser. Okay, so here is our browser. If I go to inspect it, and then if I go to the console, if whenever I'm over here, I get the x and y position of this mouse. Okay, but this mouse position I'm getting right now is from the top of this viewport to and from the left of this viewport. Okay, so what I mean by that is, so mouse is right here, then I'm getting this mouse position from here to here. This is the client y, and the client x is, this is what we are getting from the client x, and this is what I'm getting from the client y. Okay, so this is what I'm getting here. Okay, now the thing is we need to get the mouse position not from the viewport but actually from this. Let me change the color, let me give it a black color. Okay, so I want this mouse position, this one, actually from here, and this x position from here, and this y position from here, in relation from this box border, right? So I want this value and this value to change this shadow, but I'm getting this client x from here and client y from here. Okay, so the easy way of getting this value is we have the way, there is a call, it's called get bounding client rect on the element. If we use that function, we can get this x and y value of this div, that is defined by how much we are on from the top of this viewport and how much we are from the left of this viewport. Okay, so we can use that function on this div element so that we can get this top value and this left value. Now the idea is we already have this x and y value. Now if I remove this part, okay, this value from this value, the rest value is this, right? So we will get the value from this top of this div to this mouse position. And similarly I can subtract from this client x to from this, and then we will get the rest value, this one. Okay, so that will be the mouse position from the border, left border of this div. So that's how we will get the x and y position in relation to this div. Okay, now let's cancel this and go to the VS Code to implement this idea in our code. Okay, so we don't need this one now. So we got the client x and client y. Now we need to get this get bounding client rect from this div, right? So in React, what we can do is we can use to target this element, we can use ref hook. Okay, so I can just provide ref here and say this is our target ref. Okay, so if you are using JavaScript, you might need to do document.get element by id, something like that, but I'm using React, so I can do it like this. And then over here I can say const this target ref equal to use ref, and we're gonna use this hook. Okay, so let me import that. And from the React, now the initial value is null for this, and I can also give the type for it because I'm using Typescript. So the first type of this will be HTML div element. Okay, so or the null. So this can be either HTML div element or null because we are passing that in the div element, right? Okay, after that what I can do is, now on this function I can say const rect equals to target dot not the target but the target ref dot current dot get bounding client rect. Okay, so I can do something like this, but the thing is this can be sometime null, right? So to prevent any issue I can come over here and I can say if target ref dot current is null or is null, is not provided, then just return. Okay, if it's not true, okay, just return. Now I can remove this one and it still work. And what is going on here? Oh, I mistakenly put it on the top. Let me move it on the bottom over here. Okay, over here. So if when this function run, I want to check this first if it's null or not. Okay, all right, now I get that this rect, from this rect actually I can get top and left value from which I want to subtract this value or something like this. Okay, let's say this is a const x, I can just say x maybe, and use this client x value and if subtract this rect dot from left. So x is from this axis, right, horizontal axis, so this is left, and just copy this and change this to y. Okay, I think that makes sense, so let me do that, and from this rect dot left I have to put it top. Now I will get the x and y value of the mouse in relation to this div container, right? So if you want to see that, we can say console.log log and say x and y over here. If I save it, let's to go to the Chrome, and then if I inspect it, go to console over here. So let's see, So in the top is we have like fewer small values. If I go down, the y value is more, you can see over here. Okay, and if I go here, both value is higher because we have 600 px of width, there is almost 600 px, and the height is 300 px. So if I go up here, y value is smaller and the x value is higher. Okay, that's how we can get this x and y value. Right now, as our setup, this x value can range from 0 to 600, as this is the width of the div, and y can be from 0 to 300, right? But if you remember, we want the shadow value to be range from -20 to +20, right? So we need a way that we can change this 0 to 600 px value to the our desired value -20 to 20. Okay, so we have to create an equation in a way we can get that. Okay, so let me open this Chrome browser and explain how we can do that. Right now, this is the x-axis we are getting when we hover in here in this div container. We are getting the value in between 0 to 600. But for the shadow, we need to have the value between -20 to +20. That brings the center value to 0, right? Okay, so now we need to convert this x value range from 0 to 600 to -20 to +20. That's our goal. So we're gonna create an equation. Okay, so x, yes, so this is the shadow. Okay, for the shadow, for the x position, okay, that will directly depend on this x position, right? X position of the mouse, and this x position is right now the value between 0 to 600. Okay, but we need to bring this value to -20 to 20. So the center value right now of the x is 300, right? So it's the half of width of the this div container. So what we can do is we can subtract this 300, this half width of this div container, to this x value. Okay, now suddenly our range changes from 0 to 600 to we will get -300, because we subtracted 300 on this equation to this x, and the center value we will get 0. That is what we wanted. See, okay, so now this is 300 value. Okay, so we are getting the range from -300 to +300 just by doing this, subtracting 300 to the x value. Now if we divide this value by 300, now we can get the value between -1, and the 0 center value will be still 0, and the positive this value will be 1. Okay, so we are getting the range of value from -1 to +1. Okay, so after that we need the value, maximum value of 20 for our shadow, right? So if we just multiply it by this value 20, now our range from -1 to +1 will convert it to this value, -20 to +20. Now x position for the shadow will be range from -20 to +20. That is what we wanted. Now we will do the same for this y position also, and we will get the two equations for our shadow value, x shadow and y shadow. Okay, now let's see how we can do that in this VS Code. Now in VS Code, here we will create the equation that we just talked about. Let me remove this and create a variable called const, let's say the x shadow. X shadow should be equals to x minus half width of the div container divided by half width of the container, that will be 300, and multiply by 20, something like that, right? But I don't want to use this hard-coded value here, and you can see I have used the width and height hard-coded value, but in future if I ever change this value, this equation will not work, right? So let me just create few more variable over here on the top that we can use there now. And let's say first variable is width, and that will be 600, and second is height, that will be 300, and another variable I want to create is, let's say it's called max shadow offset or something like that, and this should be of 20, right? So I want to use this one over here, and width divided by 2, and this 300 will also be width divided by 2, but I want to be this to be calculated before everything else, so put it in the brackets, and then let me put this one also in the brackets so that this get calculated first. Okay, and I want to change this hard-coded value of width and height also from here, so I can just remove this one and I can use the style for that, something like that. And in style I can say width I want the value, I have to provide a string value here, so I can do that. I can use the variable in such way, and what was our variable name? Width, right? So I'm getting width from this and px, and then I want the height also, and same thing I have to do here, and px, what will be the variable name? Height. So I'm getting height and width from over here. Now every time if I change anything, height or width, our equation will not have no effect, right? It will work as we want, and the animation will not break. Okay, and let me change this value also to max shadow offset. I think that's all I want here, and another thing I want is y shadow also, right? So I change it to y, change this x value to y, and let's change this width to height. Now I get the x shadow and y shadow. These values are ranging from -20 to +20, okay, both of it. So but on the basis of this x value and y value. And now we have to use this x shadow and y shadow for the we created this text shadow. This is horizontal shadow and this is vertical shadow. We will replace with this value. Now the best way we can do that is using CSS variable, something like that. We can change this value and we can say we get the value from the variable CSS variable that will be, let's say it's name it horizontal shadow or something like that, and I can say very var vertical shadow. Let me give it a capital letter and shadow. I can also define the default value here in case CSS does not find this variable, it will replace with this value. Okay, so that is the default value, so we can provide it like that. But I don't want to use this text shadow on the index.css, so let me just copy this everything and remove this one from here. Okay, and save it and just come to this app.tsx. Now I want to use those over here. Okay, so style I can say text shadow and text shadow text string over here, and we can give that value we just created. So we want the h shadow value and b shadow value to be applied on here whenever we have this value, right? And if we do not have this value, then we gonna get this 0 value on the horizontal shadow and on the vertical shadow. Okay, that's all on this one. Now we have to link these variables from this our JavaScript to this variable CSS variables. Okay, so to do that I can use this target ref. I can just say target ref and get the current from there, and then we have to change the style of it and add a set property on it. Okay, so set property, and what kind of property I want to set on this one? I want to set the property of this horizontal shadow, and make sure you name it correctly. If you didn't name it correctly on the same thing over here, the shadow effect, you will not get the shadow effect, right? And we want to change, depend this value upon this x shadow, x shadow, but I think we have to provide this as a string, so let me just put it in the string, and let me just wrap that with this bracket, and let me just say px. I think I have to say px also. After that, I want to repeat this same thing, and for this one, for the vertical shadow. Okay, and this vertical shadow is coming from this y shadow from the here. Okay, so I think that's all. Let me save it, and let's check in the browser if it's working or not. Looks like it's working. I get the shadow effect on this, on the back. Okay, looks like it is following our mouse as I want. The only thing is shadow is following us on the same direction that mouse is moving, right? But I want to the shadow to be on the opposite side of this mouse, right? So when the mouse is on the top, I want the shadow to be cast on the bottom. So it's a simple fix. I can just come over here and put the negative on this max shadow offset value, and that will change the direction. If I save it and come back over here, now the shadow is on the opposite direction. Now one thing I want to show you here is, if I change, let's say I change some height, and maybe I change here width, now it will work similarly, because it will take it, in an equation it takes it as in an account, right? So in an equation we using this as a variable. Now this equation will work just fine even if we change the height, because it's gonna update the height on here also, right? So that's why we changed it, our code like so. Now I want to add some light effect to this, and I want the light to follow this mouse position. For that we need the x and y position of this mouse, and we already have that. So only thing we need to do is add some styling. Okay, so let's go to the VS Code over here, and we need to add some style to it, and we can use this x and y position for that to follow. Okay, so I want wherever the mouse is, the light should be on that side. So let's do it. Let's go to the index.css, and we can say add layer component, and this is coming from Tailwind, right? If you are not using Tailwind, you don't have to do that. And I want to create one class that is called box, and then I can save its position. Position is relative. What else I need? I need let's say overflow hidden for this one. And another thing that I want here is, I want to target it's after. Oh, no, I have to do this after, and I want to create some element after this box element, and I want to provide this class, box class, to this div. So I can add that box class, use that box class, save it. Now after this box class I need this element over here, so let's give some style for it. Let's say content, empty content for now, and then I can say position of this element should be absolute, because we put it relative. Now we want to position it absolute, and the width and height should be should match the height and width of the parent. So insert 0 will make sure that, and we want to create a background for this, and background should be something radial gradient. Okay, and then here I can say this radial gradient to be 160 px of width and height, and I want it to be circle. What is happening? CI or CLE? Okay. If I can spell var, and I'm using var here now because, okay, let me show you first, and before using that var, we are using the same concept we used before on this one, right? Okay, here as text shadow we are giving the var, we will use the same technique, but first now let me just provide some random value here. And what else I want the color. Okay, color, light color should be white kind of, right? So let me give the RGBA color and provide the white color 255. I think that is the whitest color for now. Let me just say its opacity is completely 1, and let me say transparent. So when it's this circular gradient should end at the transparent at the 100%. Okay, so let me just say that. Now what is happening right now, if I go to here, you can see in the 100 here is kind of light. And let me just come here and do one more thing. Let me change it back to 600, and let me change it back to 300. If I save it, and you can see there is kind of light over there, right? But I want it to be moved with the position of the mouse, and we can do by these values, something like if I change it to 50 px, and or maybe let's say 400 px, so that I can see it on the other side. And I can make this 200 or something like that. If I do that, you can see the now the light is here. So this is a x and y position for this gradient. Okay, now we want to tie this value to the our x and y position of the mouse, and we can do that similarly. We use the same idea. We just want to change this x position. We want to give the var and say what is, we can say x pose or something. Okay, x position of the mouse, and the value default value should be 0 for now. And we can also say same thing here, var, and we can say now here should be y position value, and let's say it's 0. Let me make this p a capital. Okay, and let me make it capital. Okay, now I can just save it. I can come over here, and I can use this x and y value to change the value of this x pose and y pose. Okay, the x position and y position. So I can just copy this, and I can do the same thing here. Only thing I need to change it, this vertical shadow here. I want to say this is a x position, and x position is based on x, right? So I give the x, but I think we need to provide it as a string, something like that. So let me just remove that, and here I can say x. Maybe I have to provide xpx also. Let me again copy this, paste it, and now I want to change it to y position. Where is y? Here. And I want to change this one also to y position, and this x and y position is of the mouse position, right? Current mouse position within that div, right? Okay, if I save it, I think that's all we need. And if I go back, I have some light over here, and it is following our mouse. See? And one more thing I want to do here is I want to change this opacity a little bit so it is looks good on our eye, and I can make it like 40% of opacity. So another thing I can want to do is I just want to add hover on it, so that whenever I hover only, then this element to be added. Okay, otherwise I don't want to add it. So if I save it now, looks like we got this light, and this goes when we do not have hover over there. Okay, and whenever I hover it, we get this kind of light on with that follows the mouse position. I think our animation is complete, but one more thing I want to do here. Let me just copy this one so that you don't have to see me typing this. We can do something like, let's say I am adding some cursor. When I hover here, I get this cursor. Okay, so if you want to just copy this, and now I have this cursor, the mouse is on fire or something like that. Okay, so we get firelight there, and we have some shadow on the back. Okay, all right, I think that's all, and this is how we can add the style to the element according to this mouse movement. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you, see you next time.